Unfortunately, Chargers second-round pick Tre Harris was not there to report with the rest of the rookies at Chargers training camp because he is officially holding out, and it could have a major impact on whether he can win a starting job.
You are Locked On Chargers, your daily podcast on the Los Angeles Chargers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, and welcome into the Locked On Chargers podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Wade, joined as always by my co-host, David Drogemeyer, and we've been covering the Chargers for 10 seasons now, but this is our 8th year as the host of the Locked On Chargers podcast, bringing you your team every day, and it really is because we are back up to 5 shows a week from now until next summer. So excited to be back here with you guys. To make sure that you never miss the show, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from. David, what do we got today?
Daniel, we have a holdout. Tre Harris is not going to be at camp until the contract situation is going to get done. How is that going to affect his wide receiver battle and more? We're going to get into all of the offensive camp battles here. Omarion Hampton versus Najee Harris, Zion versus Bozeman. Lots of intriguing matchups, and we're going to get into all of them.
Yeah, and today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. But training camp battles can mean many things. Battling for a spot, battling for a starting spot, battling for snaps, but you have to be on the field to be able to battle for it, and that's where we start here, David, because the rookies reported already over the weekend, and Tre Harris is officially holding out, and this is a really weird situation, unlike one I've ever seen, because now 30 of the 32 second-round picks of the 2025 NFL Draft are at this point and remain unsigned. Now, the reason Tre Harris is special is because the Chargers got to start training camp 10 days early, meaning none of the other guys are really up against it the way that Tre Harris is. And when you're trying to decide how these contracts are going to play out and who gets what guaranteed money, you're usually going by who is slotted next to you or the position player that's at the same position drafted ahead of you or right behind you. Really hard to do in Tre Harris's case because he's in the 50s, and right now only the 33rd overall pick Carson Schwessinger and the 34th overall pick Jaden Higgins are both signed, and both of those contracts are fully guaranteed. And that's where a lot of the nitty-gritty of this is happening and where the holdout and Tre Harris not being there has come down to, because of course you want as much guaranteed money as you possibly can. There's only so much that can really be bargained with in draft picks, but reportedly, the Texans kind of threw a wrench into things when they fully guaranteed Jaden Higgins' contract, and now it's kind of at a standstill. I think at one point somebody will sign and a domino effect will start, but man, it really sucks to not have Tre Harris out there at the beginning of training camp, and we'll see how long it goes.
Yeah, it does. I mean, the last year, going into that playoff game, and obviously, the result of that was very, very clear that the Chargers needed to add more guys that can get open on a consistent basis, guys that can really do damage against man and zone coverage. And Tre Harris can absolutely do that. He had the skill set. He showed that in college. And yeah, I think a lot of people were very excited about what he's able to bring to the Chargers offense, a much needed element. But that's not going to happen because he's unsigned. And so the more time that he misses where he's not on the football field, it lessens his chances to be able to find that chemistry with his quarterback and be able to build that trust and to be able to supersede some of the guys that are ahead of him on the depth chart.
Yeah, and the thing is like, I hate seeing him get bashed, right? I mean, it feels like a lot of Chargers fans have already turned on Tre Harris because of this, when this really isn't just a Tre Harris problem. I mean, you could go back and forth on whether, NFL contracts should be fully guaranteed or not. But at the end of the day, these agents are the ones working these deals out. And when you have a situation like this where one guy signing, especially someone like Tre Harris, can have a domino effect throughout the rest of the draft class or at least the second round picks, it really complicates things a little bit. I don't take this as Tre Harris being a diva and that being a problem. We have to see how long it actually lasts before I think we realize the full impact of it. But I just don't agree with, the bashing he's taken on social media. I think that's uncalled for. But we're also talking about an owner in the Chargers. If you're trying to get guaranteed money, that basically just got caught red-handed thanking the Cardinals owner for helping him pay Justin Herbert less. So this isn't something I think that gets resolved overnight, unfortunately, but it doesn't change the fact that on the field, this is going to have an impact. And as we start talking about these training camp battles today, David, it's hard not to think that this is going to affect his battle, a guy where, we saw Ladd McConkey last year go into training camp as, probably a starter, right? I mean, there wasn't a ton of competition there, but he solidified being basically the number one wide receiver during this time of the offseason. Tre Harris theoretically could have done that even with more competition this time around. And it's hard to imagine that this doesn't impact that at all.
Oh, it absolutely does. I mean, like the offseason workouts, the offseason programs are great. Like, it's good to be in the building, good to show face, good to get in the facility and use all the equipment. That's all fantastic. Get FaceTime with the coaches. But this is where the real football is played. Like, this is where things get ratcheted up. You put the pads on. You actually go in and you're trying to install the stuff that you put in, in the classroom. You're trying to put that into practice on the field and drill it to where you have it and you're confident going into the season that you know how to execute it. All of that happens right now in training camp. Like, this is where you lay the foundation. This is where you go take all those snaps that you want to have and assert yourself and try, to be undeniable and where they need to slot you. And right now, you're not giving yourself an opportunity to do that when you're not on the football field. So, and we've seen it before. Like, Joey Bosa held out, and what happened? He got hurt, and he missed a large portion of the season. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but the more time that you're not on the football field, the less time you have to be able to understand and implement everything that you were supposed to learn in the off season. So this is very, very valuable time that's being missed, Daniel.
And let's be clear, as of right now, it's not hugely impactful. Justin Herbert's not out there yet. That chemistry can't be even, made at this point. But the problem is there's a preseason game in a little over 2 weeks, right? Yeah. How long is this going to go? And then not knowing of that, and we'll talk about that a little bit with the Najee Harris, fireworks incident, where it's like, how long is he going to be out? How long is Trey Harris going to remain unsigned? Because that's the only way you can kind of get the full impact or the full kind of view of what this is going to do. And it just feels like he's going into training camp as probably wide receiver 4 behind Mike Williams and Quentin Johnston and Ladd McConkey. And it just makes it a little bit tougher to go catch up to those guys if you're missing time. And also, if you're the Chargers, this is basically the biggest investment that you made into a pass catcher this offseason was bringing in Tre Harris in the second round. And it feels like even if he gets off to a slower start, even if he can't kind of make up the ground on those guys, that is going to have an impact on your season offensively, which is, I think, why this is so important. But in the rest of the wide receiver room, there is more battles that are going to be continue to go on, and other guys who are going to be able to have a chance to raise their stock while Trey Harris is out potentially, like Mike Williams, right? Quentin Johnston, those guys kind of squaring off to see where they end up in the pecking order of wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3. What can Keandre Lambert-Smith do? And, can one of these guys like a Jalen Reagor or a Brendan Rice at the bottom of the roster try to get a spot or make them keep a 7th wide receiver? So while Trey Harris is out, David, the fireworks in the wide receiver room, maybe we should find a different term for that now. The battles in the wide receiver room don't stop.
No, they don't. And I mean, I think if I'm any one of these other guys, it's like, okay, opportunities are knocking, right? That means that I get my chance and I get to go out there and shine and I get to be able to go take a job, right? If I'm a Brendan Rice, if I'm a Jalen Reagor, who I think are probably right now pretty close to being on the outside looking in, this is valuable opportunities right here to be able to go take every single chance you can to make this roster.
Absolutely. And I think, again, for these battles in here, the biggest questions will be, can Quentin Johnston take another step? Because if he wants to kind of cement himself as the wide receiver 2, we know he has to have another big leap this year.
Yeah.
And then I think for Mike Williams, it's staying healthy, already missed time during the offseason. If you're not out there, you're not going to be able to kind of get back on the same page with Justin Herbert. You're not going to be able to show this team that, hey, I can pick up where I left off on the outside, stick me out there at X, put Ladd McConkey in the slot, and everybody eats, right? You have to be able to go out there and show that. And I don't know if they're going to want him to play a ton in the preseason with his injury history. I wouldn't necessarily think so.
I doubt it.
So can he get out there in training camp, showed that he's healthy, showed that he's fully recovered from the knee injury in 2023, and now he's getting more physically back to where he was before that, when he was putting together a dominant season that got cut tragically short. But there are a lot of things to watch for in this wide receiver room, and also the Keandre Lambert-Smith of it all. Can he make up some ground on Tre Harris now? Will he be back? Jim Harbaugh said he expected all the guys that missed OTAs that would be back for training camp. How can he factor into this, potentially getting some of the snaps that another rookie would have gotten? But we have way more position battles to get into, including maybe the most interesting one, Omarion Hampton versus Najee Harris, and how that has been impacted in recent weeks. We're going to get into all that and more on today's Locked On Chargers podcast. First, though, I need to tell you guys about Game Time. We've all been there, logging on early and waiting forever for a concert or to get those tickets on sale, only to lose your spot. For a show you've been dying to see, live music should be about making memories, not dealing with the stress of ticket shopping, and that's where Game Time comes in. Game Time makes getting tickets to concerts faster and easier than ever. Prices actually drop the closer it gets to showtime, and you can save up to 60% off with their killer last-minute deals, and I actually used that to help my dad out for his 60th birthday over the weekend. So much fun. Used Game Time to get 6 tickets to the Padre game on Saturday night, and it was one of his best birthdays he's ever had, according to him. So he is a big advocate for Game Time. I loved using it, seeing the exact view from the seats and knowing exactly what I was going to pay. So take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply, but again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time app today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. David, let's get back into these position battles here. And I think when you're talking about the biggest battles going into training camp on this roster, at least on the offensive side of the ball, I think the running back room probably has the most riveting conversations of where this room will stack up, who is going to make it on the team in this room. But it starts with the starting RB1 position, which feels like it's been flipped on its head a little bit, David, with the incident of with Najee Harris, the other Harris, having the firework incident on the 4th of July, and now hearing from his agent that he'll be back for the season, but it doesn't say he'll be back for the start of training camp. So, David, I think we went into this knowing, hey, Omarion and Najee will go into this. They'll have a camp battle for, I think, Omarion to kind of prove, hey, I should be the guy. I should get as many carries as this 4-year NFL veteran, or maybe even more of them. And now it feels like it's like, man, how much ground, how much can he separate himself, Omarion Hampton, that is, in that RB1 role while Najee Harris potentially misses time?
This is what happens every year, right? Every single year, and a veteran gets hurt, and then a rookie has an opportunity to step up and take that spot. It just seems like no matter what,
doesn't usually happen the way it did this year. Yes,
yeah. Obviously, the way it happened was definitely unique in how, but opportunities are knocking. Sizes.
Yeah, exactly.
Indeed, right? So Omarion Hampton here now has the beautiful opportunity to establish himself as RB1 right now, to be able to take that, to be able to show the coaches that, like, hey, you drafted me in the first round for a reason, because I'm that dude, and I'm going to show you that I'm that dude, and I should be RB1 right out of the gate. This is the opportunity of a lifetime for Omarion Hampton to be able to capitalize on. I mean, and hey, it sucks to see what happened with Najee Harris, and hopefully he is able to make his way back, because I still feel like he is going to factor into the Chargers offense this season, no question about it. But Omarion Hampton has always been the more explosive of these two players, and I think if he gets a clear-cut opportunity to show it, and I think he'll probably play a little bit in the preseason as well. I think he's a rookie. Even as a first-round pick, I expect to see him in the preseason. So this right here, this is the golden opportunity. Let's see what he does with the golden ticket.
Yeah, I believe we'll absolutely see him in the preseason. We'll see kind of what the leash on that looks like, right? How many carries are they willing to give him? As far as Najee Harris go, I think the thing is it doesn't feel like his job is in jeopardy as of right now. But we still don't know the extent of the injury. We still don't know the extent of the missed time potentially, right? So the only way I could, maybe if he actually lost an eye, which we don't know, and that doesn't seem like a superficial eye injury to me. No. It doesn't seem like that's what happened. But maybe that changes things with his contract. But besides that, it feels like he should be back in a decent amount of time, you would have to think. And we'll have something to stay in this battle. And, we'll be putting his best foot forward in a contract year for him to show, hey, he might be great. He might be the young stud, but I still have something to bring to this team as well. And there's a reason, a big reason why you brought me in to begin with.
Yeah.
But I don't even know if that's the most interesting camp battle at that position, because I know all eyes on this fan base or from this fan base are on Rocket Sanders, an undrafted free agent favorite, a guy who was likely to be drafted in other years and maybe a lesser running back draft class outside of, this really, really deep one was projected, 6th or 7th round pick in the draft, falls into the Chargers' laps. And it feels like, David, we've talked about it a couple times before, but really the battle here is going to be Rocket Sanders versus Kimani Vidal, and a former 6th round pick in 2024 might be fighting for his roster spot.
Yeah, because we know what the coaching staff has said and how they feel about Rocket Sanders. It seemed very clear from the beginning that he was a priority undrafted free agent, a guy that they wanted to make sure that they were going to secure his services. They gave him a little bit more money because they believe in him. They really feel like this guy has a real true shot, an opportunity to supplant Kimani Vidal on the roster. I mean, it seems like he's a little bit bigger, a little bit more physical. He's a little bit more of the prototypical style and size of running back that the Chargers clearly like, and who they have ahead of him on the depth chart with Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris, both bigger guys that have some explosiveness. So I think, just based off of what they like, it seems like, they're going to give Rocket Sanders every opportunity to try to beat him out. They did say Kimani Vidal was looking good. And so I think these guys are probably the two that are going to get the lion's share of the opportunities in the preseason to really kind of take that spot on the roster one way or the other.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what the Chargers kind of value, and I think they'll tell you in this battle. And I do think that Rocket has a chance to make the team, but I do think at the same time, they also might believe that they can hide him on the practice squad, right? And stash him there. And for the most part, the third running back on this team isn't going to get a ton of carries, even if you do win that job.
Right.
Last year, it was Hassan Haskins that was active on game days as a special teamer, and where he kind of fits into this mix is going to be interesting as well, because he is a guy that doesn't bring much to the table as a traditional running back running between the tackles. He was a short yardage specific guy last year, did have the one big catch against the Broncos, had some moments, but for the most part, he was active on game day because of what he brought on special teams, which is also kind of why we're putting him on the immunity list here, so to speak. Why he would probably be on this bubble if it was based just on rushing ability. But unless one of those guys in Kimani Vidal or Rocket Sanders can become a special teams ace out of nowhere, it feels like those two guys are fighting for the right spot. And it does feel like stylistically, Rocket is closer to what you already have on the roster.
Yeah.
Where Kimani Vidal brings maybe a little bit more shiftiness, a little bit of a different change of pace type of role. But what they do in the preseason should have a huge impact on who ends up getting that spot. Another thing is, like you said, we should see a ton of them. I mean, I think we'll see a ton of them. Jarrett Patterson is also in the mix, and he actually made the initial 53-man last year and got caught in the shuffle in week 1 and got moved back to the practice squad. But also you have Hassan Haskins, who should get his fair share of preseason work as well, just because, hey, you got to have somebody taking those carries and taking the beating that kind of comes along with it. But let's touch on the backup quarterback situation really quick, because I do think that there is somewhat of a battle here between Taylor Heinicke and Trey Lance. You bring in Trey Lance for a reason. You give him the opportunity to make, up to $6 million, which was the big thing there. But it does feel like, David, that Taylor Heinicke will have a distinct advantage going in. I'd be really surprised if it isn't Heinicke that comes out of training camp, comes out of the preseason, goes into the season as the number 2 quarterback.
Yeah, well, I mean, he's just the guy that is the kind of the better passer. He's the guy that's a little bit more accurate, a lot more accurate, the guy that has starting experience and, like a full season of it. So, I mean, it's just that, and also he's the guy that the Chargers traded for. So I think they felt like, hey, this is the guy I feel comfortable having behind my superstar quarterback. And so I feel like, he's going to be the guy that ultimately wins that job. And just because I feel like he's just a different level of player than Trey Lance. I mean, I think they like the rushing aspect of Trey Lance and his mobility. I think that's something that they covet. But I just think from, hey, I need to put this guy in and I need to feel like he's going to at least keep my offense afloat and be able to move the football. I think that guy is Taylor Heinicke, and I think we all kind of know that.
It does feel like Trey Lance would have to have just such a spectacular preseason, and training camp as well to put himself into kind of the backup quarterback competition to really who is that next guy. And with the injuries that Justin Herbert has faced over the last few years, it's a really important position, important enough position to trade for Taylor Heineke to begin with. But we saw the gambit last year with Trey Lance when the Chargers played against him, right? He put up 413 yards against the Chargers defense, but he also threw 5 interceptions and fumbled the ball twice, losing one of them. So that kind of gives you the whole Trey Lance experience. A lot of ability, but also could turn the ball over 6 times in a game if you just kind of totally untether him. But we know Greg Roman, whether it's Lamar or Colin Kaepernick, right, Tyrod Taylor, whoever it is, he loves having it. And you would have to change the offense a lot more to go to Trey Lance and in that situation more than Justin Herbert to Taylor Heineke. But you're always going to have to change the offense dramatically if Justin Herbert's not out there. It would be fun, and I hope Greg Roman really leans into the rushing side and just kind of goes full out with it in the preseason to give us a look at what that could look like. But it'll always be interesting to see what DJ Uiagalelei will be able to do. Maybe he shows them enough to be that emergency third quarterback they can keep on the practice squad and bring up on game days. But we still have more, including maybe the most impactful position battle of all, Zion Johnson versus Bradley Bozeman, and more in today's Locked On Chargers podcast. David, we still have more big battles to get into, and I'm really excited to be on the precipice of training camp and have something so exciting to be excited about, because this is it, man. The slog of the offseason is almost over, and we really want to thank the ride or die everydayers out there who have been with us through the entire journey, because it's hard to put out as many shows as we do in the offseason, and now this is the fruits of our labor when we get to actually have the fun stuff to talk about. But thank you, as always, for making us your first listen. And also, make sure you guys check out the Locked On NFL Top 100, which will be released this Wednesday, July 16th at 10 a.m. Eastern Time on Locked On Sports Today. The NFL Top 100 was voted on by the NFL hosts of Locked On, and there are some stunners on there, so don't miss where your favorite players were ranked and where the Chargers were ranked. Subscribe to Locked On Sports Today on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts from. David, this isn't segment 3, but maybe that kind of doesn't really give credit to how big of a battle this is. The center battle, Bradley Bozeman versus Zion Johnson.
Yeah, this is a big one. This one here was the most obvious deficiency, still the biggest glaring issue that the Chargers, we at least don't feel like properly addressed in the offseason. It just feels like, hey, we're going to do a little game of musical chairs. We're going to switch the guard in the center, and we're going to see which one of these guys win out. Now, the Chargers coaching staff, they really feel convinced that Zion Johnson has all the tools to be a very good center in this league. But this is also a very risky proposition, transitioning a guy to a different position at the NFL level after you played guard for 3 years. I mean, yeah, like, hey, this guy's incredibly smart, very strong. I mean, he has all of the kind of intangibles that you like, but we're talking about having to call protections, having to be able to be the commander of the middle of that offensive line and make sure everybody's lined up and know where they're supposed to be. It just seems like this is a very, very big ask for them to be able to take 2 players who really struggled with similar things last year and kind of rotate them around and expect to get better results. It just seems a little bit like it's going to be a little bit far-fetched. But hey, I'm optimistic. I think you kind of really only have to be, because there's not really anybody else that's been able to enter this conversation as of right now.
It'd be hard not to be disappointed by this battle being between 2 players that we saw struggle so mightily. And even also just the fact that the reason this is in segment 3 is also because it doesn't feel like it has the stakes attached that maybe it should, because it feels like both of these guys will be starting on this offensive line pretty much regardless. If Zion Johnson loses the center battle, it just turns Bradley Bozeman back into the center, and you go back to the same combination of left guard and center that you had last season. And maybe both these guys can improve in a vacuum. I think the part that's so hard to kind of figure out is just how can this same 2 guys being next to each other, which struggled so badly last year, even with the Mekhi Becton next to them, make enough of an improvement to cover up what was easily the biggest flaw on your roster last year. And also, Jim Harbaugh wants it to be decided within the first 8 to 10 days of camp. So I'm guessing that would be padded practices. I'm guessing you'd want some preseason action of Zion Johnson playing center. And if I were them, I'd be, pretty tempted to give him, the majority of 3 games playing that position. But I do think it's going to be Zion facing his own kryptonite, the 2 things he struggles with most, which is basically quick losses in pass protection and also just the general awareness of being able to pick up blitzes and be in the right spot and helping where he needs to on a consistent basis. That basically is what it comes down to. Those things are elevated at the center position. So the best opportunity for this team to be better in this regard is for Zion to be great at center and for him to run away with this. And for Bradley Bozeman, who's played left guard in a Greg Roman system, to be able to be better at left guard than he was at center last year. It's just something we're going to have to see it to believe it. And then I think the biggest question kind of on the interior besides that is just like, man, can an Andre James put his hat in the ring? Can Branson Taylor, a 6th round rookie, actually have a chance at left guard like Greg Roman said he would? Like, that's the hard thing going into it, is like, I want to be rooting for those guys, but right now it doesn't feel like they have a shot.
No, it really doesn't, Daniel. I mean, I think that they like Branson Taylor. I think they like the physical tools and the kind of physicality that he plays with. As a guy who was playing tackle and is going to be transitioning to guard. But I just think that's way too much to ask a rookie to transition from tackle to guard and win a starting guard spot in his rookie season with just such small amount of time. I just don't see that as a possibility. And with Andre James, he's been running with the second, third team pretty much since he got here. It just doesn't seem like he was ever given any real opportunity to throw his hat in the ring and be like, hey guys, like, I've been a starter in this league for a long time and I've played some really good football. Like, I feel like I should be given an opportunity to show how this offensive line looks with somebody who wasn't here last year, who did not show the same issues that we so obviously know has not been fixed or addressed, at least as of right now, as we haven't seen anybody in pads on the actual football field. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. If the moniker stays true of competitors welcome, well, hopefully all of these competitors get a real opportunity to show what they can do as the starters on this offensive line.
Yeah, and I definitely, you might as well just keep Trey Pipkins as your swing tackle, right? Like, I don't need to see what Andre James can do at left guard. Just keep him at center, right? Like, just give these guys a chance at what they do best. And for Branson Taylor, 6th round rookie, one of our guests on the show, Stephen Hagelin, last week, he didn't even have him on his initial 53-man roster. Had him as a roster cut. So, like, nothing's guaranteed. But either way, not as much competition as you'd like for a position that feels like it has such high stakes attached to it as far as what this team can do and what the promised land is for them. Because it does feel like you can be good. You can get, hey, we got 11 wins, didn't we? Right? That was the mantra. In spite of that, not because of it. So it'll really have a huge impact on how this season goes. And you just really have to hope that Bradley Bozeman can tap back into better play that we've seen from him in the past and that Zion can take off as a center. But let's talk about the tight end position, because I don't see as many 1v1s here, right? Like, I don't think Oronde Gadsden is challenging Will Dissly to be the starting tight end here, right? Or even fighting against Tyler Conklin. But it does kind of feel like a battle between kind of the 3 of those guys to see where the snap share is going to play out. And I think really what the biggest thing here, David, is just how much ground can Oronde Gadsden II make up? How much can he show this coaching staff that he has the ability to block, to get, who, no disrespect to Tyler Conklin, already the most talented receiving option on this team at tight end on the field, and all of that starts to kind of play itself out, and really, that snap share is going to be kind of determined starting now as we go into training camp.
Yeah, I think the Chargers clearly coveted his services, obviously, when they traded up to secure him. So I think they know what Oronde Gadsden brings to the table from a receiving standpoint. How quickly can he show that he should be an instrumental part of this passing game, like a weapon? How quickly can he show, hey guys, I'm a guy that can move the football field on a consistent basis. I should be on the field. Give me more snaps. But that's also up to him just to show the ability to at least block a little bit, to be able to, be able to have that kind of element of surprise, right? Are you going to run the ball? Are you going to pass the ball? It can't just be a dead indicator that when Oronde is on the field that they are throwing the football. So I think it's up to him to showcase that ability. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how that tight end room shakes out. I do feel a lot more confident in the room with the kind of variety of skill sets that are present.
Yeah, and then, the other conversation in that room is just at the end of it, can Tucker Fisk push for a roster spot, right? We've talked about before, he was one of the more impressive run blockers at the tight end position last year from week 10 on. And maybe a Steve O'Klotz enters his name in that conversation, right? It could be Steve O'Klotz versus Scott Matlock at fullback. It could be Tucker Fisk versus Steve O'Klotz. Neither of those guys could end up with a spot on this roster because as we went through those predictions, we figured out how tough these are going to be as far as the decisions that have to be made here. But it'll be interesting. Tucker Fisk and Steve O'Klotz, definitely two guys at that position we're going to be watching for going into camp.
Hey, every single person that said anything about Steve O'Klotz has said, wait till he gets the pads on and shows you what he brings to the table. His best attributes have not been able to shine through, and that's the physicality. And hey, if you want to be a tough physical football team, you have to have tough physical football players. And by all accounts, that's what Steve O'Klotz is. He's going to have to showcase that, and he's going to have to do it consistently to beat out one of these other blocking specific type players that are currently on the roster.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm super excited to watch both of these guys. Tucker Fisk, big, physical blocking tight end that's a good fit for Greg Roman. And that's the thing, even with the Oronde Gadsden, there's plenty of great tight ends in the NFL that can't block, right? That's just the fact of the matter. In this specific offense, though, you're going to want blockers at that position, and you're going to want to use a lot of tight end sets. So I could see this being a 4-guy position, where they could keep 4 tight ends, and Tucker Fisk, I think, would be kind of the last man in, and he was on my roster when we did our initial predictions. But Steve O'Klotz, definitely going to be an undrafted free agent darling, and there are going to be a couple more we're going to be talking about tomorrow when we get into the defensive camp battles, including 2024 starter Cam Hart, all of a sudden fighting for his starting spot again versus Dante Jackson, Junior Colson versus Denzel Perryman, and more when we get into that. But to make sure you guys don't miss it, go subscribe or follow for free on the Locked On Chargers YouTube channel and listen wherever you get your podcast from, because like I said, it is back to your team every day. We're back up to 5 shows a week, and we'll be with you guys every day this week. So make sure you are following on all of our social media where we post the show every day as well, at Locked On LAC on Twitter, at Locked On Chargers on Instagram, and our Locked On Chargers Facebook page. We'll be getting into fan mail shows soon, especially with training camp coming up. We're going to be pretty busy, but we'll make sure we squeeze you guys in where we can these next couple of weeks. So hit us up at all of those places, or 323-524-7924 to give us your 30-second Chargers voicemail, buy or sell, whatever you guys want to get on the show. But training camp is here. We're almost there, guys. Make sure you're back tomorrow for the defensive camp battles. But until then, take it easy and go Bolts.